kids in your laps. So I want to tell you a little bit about the update on the building next door. So obviously things are taking just a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we did paint that entire back wall last week. We got all that painted, and the stage is continuing to be developed. And if you haven't seen it, it's pretty fun, and maybe we'll take some pictures and bring them over and just show you kind of what's going on when you next week when you come in. We can kind of give you that perspective. So thank you for your patience as we crowd in here together. We really appreciate that. So I want to tell you a little bit about what's coming up in terms of our speaking series. So we have 2 more weeks left about women that are listed in the lineage of Jesus. We have this week and next week. So this week is Rahab, and next week will be Mary, the mother of Jesus. So really looking forward to that. So following that, we're going to do our normal Advent series up until Christmas. And then starting in January, we're going to talk a little bit about our mission statement again. I want to just give you a brief overview of our mission statement real quick, just to kind of entice you to come back and listen. So those of you that weren't involved in the inception of Compass, it took us a long time to come up with this mission statement, actually a number of months, but I want to just walk you through it real briefly. Compass is a fresh expression of the church, a biblically true, safe environment where people are free to belong, grow, and serve. 22 words, but it took us a long time to come up with those 22 words. But I want to tell you a little bit about it. There's sort of 3 parts to that. One is the first part that kind of, like if you think about it in terms of a house. So what's going on inside the house when you get there? That's the first part. So it's a fresh expression of the church. And we'll walk you through that in a little bit more detail, but basically that's saying we don't want to be tied down to tradition. We want to be able to do things that are culturally relevant to our time and to the people that are attending. So that's what that fresh expression is all about. The second part of it deals with what does the house actually look like. So as you look around, you look at the walls and the ceiling and the floors and kind of what's there, what does that look like? And so that's the part that talks about a biblically true, safe environment. So those are the 2 key things that we wanted the house to look like. We wanted it to be biblically true, 100% biblically true. And we also wanted it to be a safe place for anybody to feel comfortable coming and worshiping and being part of a group. So biblically true and safe environment. And then the last part 3 was, what do we want to happen to people that come? What do we want the change to be in people that come to our house? And that's the last part of our mission statement. To belong, grow, and serve. We want people that come to be changed. So when we talk about we want to see growth in Compass, we're not talking numerical growth. We're talking about growth inside. We want people to be changed to where they feel like they belong, that they're growing, and they're serving. So we're going to talk a lot more about our mission statement in the month of January. So again, we're going to finish the series on the women in the Bible, followed by Advent, followed by talking about our mission statement. So I encourage you to stay tuned and keep coming. So before we get into our worship service this morning, we do have just a couple of quick announcements. The first one is that for a couple of weeks, some of our younger divisions are not meeting because people are out of town. So you can see the Connect won't meet again until the 4th of December. And then I believe next week, the Cracks will meet again, which is the 3rd through 5th grade. So just keep that in mind. Then next we have the community kitchen again. How many did we serve this last week? 145. So again, just a reminder, that is a huge ministry of our church now. Serving people that are food insecure. They don't have enough food. So they come to us on Tuesdays and they're getting great lunches. Really appreciated the presentation that you ladies did a couple weeks ago. That was really great. Remember to keep that in your prayers, and also if you desire to give funds for that, it's costing us about $400 a week. So if you want to give funds to that, please do that online or at the boxes in the back. And then also if you think you can help support that physically yourself, make sure you see Susan Mason and she can put you to work. I also want to talk about The Chosen. So we talked last week about trying to do a group thing where we could get tickets, and we talked about tentatively doing it Saturday night, the 6th, I think it was. And unfortunately, when we went to buy tickets for that date, we looked at the only seats that were left were the ones right underneath the screen across the front, and there weren't enough for the size group that we were thinking would want to go. So here's our options. One option is we can move the date to Monday night. Monday night, I think it's the 6th maybe. Maybe the initial night was the 4th, and so we're talking about moving it to whatever that Monday night is. I think it's the 6th. So if we move it to Monday night, it appears that there's enough seats for us that are good seats that we can still do it on a Monday night. The other option would be to just let everybody go on their own. So how many of you would be interested in going together, take the bus, or meet us over there on a Monday night? Can I hold your hands up high and just leave them up for a minute? Let me see. Question? Oh, it's in Fayetteville. Yeah, in Fayetteville. Starts at 7. 7 o'clock. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it looks like about 25. So let's do that. Let's plan on Monday night. I think it's Monday night the 6th. Somebody get a calendar.
It's the 6th.
Monday night the 6th. So let's plan on Monday night the 6th, and we'll give you more details coming up. We'll probably have the bus here leave from the parking lot here, and or if you want to drive yourself, it starts at 7. But so let's plan on Monday night, December the 6th. Thank you. Last announcement this morning is, I think it's last. Is this the last announcement? So last announcement is just to remember to put this on your calendar, that From Christmas to the Cross is coming up. This should be really exceptional this year. So Judy Judy is the leader of that. A lot of you are helping with it. So looking forward to that. Friday, December the 17th from 6 to 9, and then Saturday, December the 18th. So really, really looking forward to that coming up here in just a few weeks. So let's worship together, and to start this morning, children's story. And if you are a child or a child at heart, I would invite you to come forward.
Good morning. Happy Sabbath. Can you say Happy Sabbath? Happy Sabbath. I have a very exciting Bible story to tell you. God had a special friend named Joshua. And God's people, his family, had been wandering around the desert, learning some very important lessons. One of those is to learn to trust God. And Joshua met with God one night, and he said, "You know, Joshua, I think it's time to go over to the promised land. They've been waiting for a long time, camping in the desert where there are no trees and no grass, and they were anxious to find their home. God had promised them that they would someday build a nation in Canaan to be their promised land, flowing with milk and honey." Does that sound great? Well, that sounded pretty great to Joshua, but Joshua was a little bit worried. He said, "You know, looking across the Jordan River, over there to the promised land, there's a big, huge city. It's a big city. How are we going to get in that city to make our home, start our home?" And God said, "I have a plan. I have a plan." "All right," said Joshua. "All right. So I want you to practice with me. We need a little bit. I need you to do this with your hand. Can you do this with your hand? Okay. And then we're going to make horn sounds. Okay, good. All right. Well, Joshua got across the river, and they went up to the big city. And the big city was all closed down because they had heard that Joshua's God was very strong. He was able to provide lots of miracles for people while they were traveling in the desert. And they were worried that they would lose their home there. So they closed down all the windows and closed all the doors. Well, how are they going to get in there? Joshua said, "Well, this is what we're going to do." He got 7 priests, and they stood in the front. And they all had their horns. Can you get your horns out? They got got in a line, and he said, okay, then the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was a big, beautiful gold box. It held the most important items that the Israelites held. It had the 10 Commandments in it, and lots of other things they needed to preserve. So next came the Ark of the Covenant, and then the people behind. But Joshua told them something really funny. He said, nobody is to talk. Nobody is to sing. Nobody is to whisper. Just walk. Just march. So that's what they did. Off went the priests with the 7 trumpets. And they started marching. And they said, well, this is kind of a funny way to get the city. But they marched all the way around. And they stopped. And they went back to their camp. And they started to talk. Well, that was very strange. That was interesting. But God has a plan, so we're going to do it again. Next morning, they showed up at the wall. And they went around again. Just the priests. Everybody else was very quiet. Very quiet. They did it again. They did it for 6 days. And the people inside the wall said, what are they doing? That's so strange. Maybe they're crazy. I don't know. They were interested. The 7th day, they showed up. And Joshua had another instruction for them. He said, okay, we're going to go around the city 7 times this time, very quietly. And when we come to the last round, we're going to stop and we're going to shout. And we don't know what they shouted. What do you think they shouted? Hurrah! We're home! Hallelujah! I don't know. But they decided to march, so off they went. And the priest went first. They marched around 7 times. And when they came around to the 7th time, Joshua said, blow your horns and shout! Shout to your God! And everybody shouted! Yay! And do you know what happened? That giant rocks, and you might see some pictures of them, they came tumbling down. God opened up the city so that they could start their new home all together. God is going to be able to do things like that for you. There may be walls in your life that you have to face. If we trust and if we always stay close to God, He's going to remove those walls and give you a beautiful home. All right, you can go back to your seats.
Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. When the Son sets free, oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I
hard to come by. Circumstances, brokenness, frustration, all get in the way. It can be difficult to see God through the fog. You want to stand firm, knowing God is in control. But you look around and you see chaos. How do you give thanks in such a moment? The truth is, life isn't easy. There are challenges, there's pain, there's heartache. Even though our landscape may change, we serve a God that never changes. When we're in our darkest moment, God promised to never leave us or forsake us. When our faith is shaken to its core, our God remains faithful. The world will ebb and flow, this is certain. But when we run with endurance the race set before us, and we fix our eyes on Jesus, we find thanksgiving.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away.
you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. For with the heart man believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, abounding in riches for all who call upon him. For whoever will call upon the name of the Lord will be saved.
Father, thank you that we can run to you. But Lord, this morning we celebrate that you ran to us and that you continue to run. That when we run from you, you continue to run. Lord, you are in desperate pursuit of a relationship with us. And when we feel alone, Lord, it's because we have turned our backs. This morning, may we turn again our eyes to the hope of the nations. As we hear about an unusual act of faith from an unexpected source, may we realize, Lord, that it is often us that are looking in the wrong place. And may we find ourselves hanging out that red cord to hear and to know you better. Speak to us now, we pray in your name. Amen.
So looking forward to getting back into our building. I'm also really grateful that my turn came and we're still in here. It feels a little cozier, less intimidating. But it's so good to have you all here today. My name's Michelle, if you don't know who I am. I am not one of the normal teachers, so if you don't like me, that's totally okay. Come back another week, be a better group of teachers. We are all volunteer-led, so we have a teaching team that rotates through, and they're all really great. We spend a lot of time studying the Word, and we just believe that the Holy Spirit is over compass. So, what would you like to be known for? A couple weeks ago, Dora and I went to hang out with Academy Kids again for their Sabbath school, and I actually took a lot of my notes from this as I was preparing, because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and sermons and readings, and I asked the girls, what would you like to be known for? And I handed out a little piece of paper, and I asked them to write on it. So I'll read a few. Talent, humor, inspiring people. Strong, independent, courageous, good morals and principles, loving, kind. Being a person that people can talk to, tell things, trustworthy. I got a picture on this one. But it says being inspiring, someone to look forward to. I want to be known for kindness, for being kind and Christ-like. I want to be courageous and faithful to God. Courage, kindness. I want to be known for being a responsible, wise person that can be counted on. A good example. I want to encourage others, be a true reflection of God. I want to be known for not being afraid to do things for God, not caring or wanting others' approval, speaking with a soft answer, giving the impression to others that I love God, making people laugh, a person who everyone feels comfortable around. Faith in Christ, kindness to everyone, even to those who aren't kind to me. Strong, courageous, faithful. So currently we're in a series about women in the genealogy of Jesus. Matthew 1 lists all these names. And there are significant women listed. Rahab is one of them. We have Tamar, who was not forgotten by God. Bathsheba, who was restored. Ruth was accepted. And here we are looking at another woman of Jesus' lineage. Another woman who has a messy past but was deemed worthy. Rahab. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for bringing us here together. I'm in awe today of how we are able to freely worship you, to talk about you, to learn about you. And I ask that today that my words are yours. That you let everyone hear exactly what they need to know from you. I love you. Amen. Our story actually starts in Numbers 13. She's sneaky. All right. Our story actually starts in Numbers 13 when Moses and the Israelites finally reached the promised land. So I have a slide of a map that Caleb's got for me. And this is the promised land, kind of what's Canaan. You see Jerusalem, which is still there. Jericho's kind of tucked in there. Up above here. Anyway, so I have both my parents grew up in cool places. They were missionary kids, and my mom grew up in Beirut, Lebanon. So you can go to the next slide for me, Caleb. My granddaddy was a minister over in Beirut, Lebanon in the late 60s and 70s. And they love to take photos. So I have some photos. These are actually his slides that I had to scan in. So the quality's not great, but I wanted you to see just kind of a little feeling of what maybe the land of Jericho might have looked like to the Israelites. Kind of a big door in the wall there. Women, the grapevines behind them. This might have looked like what the walls of Jericho would look like, that big fortress around them. Buildings in the wall. You can kind of see some of that. And then that's the modern day, and that's my granddaddy with his camera. So we know in Numbers 13, Moses chose 12 spies, one from each tribe, to go into the land and to survey it. In verse 25 of Numbers 13, it says, the spies returned after 40 days to report what they saw. They came before Moses and Aaron and the entire congregation and showed the amazing fruit they found. We came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit. However, the people who dwell there are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. So what we know that happens then is the people freak out. My Bible heading even says that the people rebel. What to do, right? God literally promises that the Israelites can conquer these people, and the land is theirs. And Joshua and Caleb, who were two of the spies, try to remind these people of these promises. God's got this for us. They ignore him, and they run back to the desert for another 40 years. Yet again, the chosen people turn away from him. But God keeps his promise. The promised land is still theirs. However, it will be another generation that is allowed to try again. So this is where we come to the story in Joshua, where the two spies were sent to Jericho. So it's Joshua chapter 1, verse 1, if you have your Bibles or your phones. The Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all the people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses. Verse 5. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous. For you shall cause the people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Verse 7, again, be strong and very courageous. Verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Okay, how many times did you hear be strong and courageous in that little bit? 3 times at least, right there. In this tiny span of 9 verses, the command and reminder to be strong and courageous because God is with you happens 3 times. I think God's trying to be really clear here. He even mentioned chosen people, Israelites. He identifies them by name. He wants his people to obey and to receive this amazing gift of the promised land so badly. He's telling Joshua, come on man, this is it. We can do this. This time Joshua decides he's not going to give the Israelites a chance to freak out. He tells them to spread the word. They are going to conquer and possess this great gift God has promised them. He uses God's phrase to them, be strong and courageous, to encourage them. And then he secretly picks 2 spies, just 2, and he sends these 2 to Jericho. So this is where our girl Rahab enters the story. Joshua 2, chapter 1. I think I have a slide for that one. Joshua said, go view the land, especially Jericho. And they went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab and lodged there. So Greg sent me a podcast of a sermon by Randy Roberts, who is a pastor from Loma Linda. University Church. And I listened to his specific one about Rahab. And one thing I thought was really good is he speculates on two facts about this story that we know so far. First, Rahab was indeed a prostitute. There are a lot of the philosophers and theologians who've attempted to make her into an innkeeper or something else. No doubt about it. She was a prostitute. And as Kay mentioned, back then, if you weren't married or had family taking care of you, you were either a beggar or you were a prostitute. Number two, the second point that Randy Roberts made of this story was these men were in the red light district. Why do you think they were in the red light district? These two spies, this is where they ended up. They were both men of God. And they were in a place where, I don't think there were probably a lot of eye contact walking down the street, probably a lot of shame throughout there. So it was a perfect place to hide. Randy makes the point that no one was going to ask questions as to who these two dudes were. However, we do know that they were noticed. And that when they went to Rahab's house, that the king sent messengers to find out who these guys were. But we know that God had been working in Rahab's heart because she hides the spies. And I really wonder, what was it that made her notice and decide to do this? These questions that we don't know. At night, she goes up to the men hiding on her roof after she has sent the king's men away. And she says from Joshua 2:8, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God, in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Okay, let's pause right there. Rahab has heard stories about the Israelites' God. These are stories that probably even happened before she was born. But instead of feeling fear or melting, like she mentions, losing spirit like the other people in Jericho, these stories have stirred her heart. They've given her a faith in a God she has never personally experienced. So when I was studying this, it felt really good to actually, because a lot of times I read on my phone and write devotions and stuff in the morning, and so it's so good to get my Bible out and kind of see some notes I had before, but I got jittery and kind of emotional reading this because I'm like, what is going on? Why is this kind of upsetting to me? And this is what I realized. The Israelites, who had God literally speaking to them, who witnessed miracles, who knew that God had good things promised for them, struggled with their faith every day. Then here comes this lying, pagan prostitute who simply hears stories of a God, and she believes and acts in a big way to save strangers. In this statement of her saying, for the Lord your God, He is God, she's professing her faith, just as we are told to do in the New Testament. In Romans, it says, Romans 10:9, it says, for with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses and is saved. For the scripture says, everyone who believes in Him will not be put to shame. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is the Lord of all, bestowing His riches on all who call Him. And verse 13, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Jumping down to verse 19 of Romans 10, it says, so faith comes from hearing. Oof, gut punch. This made me worked up because I realized this prostitute who lived a life of shame had faith in a God that she'd never met before. And yet I know God, and I've heard these stories, and I still struggle with my faith just like the Israelites. Anyone else a little shook up over that? I think it's a good realization. So back to Joshua chapter 2, verse 12. Rahab is a woman used to making deals with men. So she boldly strikes this deal with spies. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also will deal kindly with my father's house. Give me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Grace is now, is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. You're my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Still a good week.